We are back. We are back with another recap of the Mystery at Blind Frog Ranch Season 2. We're at Episode 3. I want to jump right into some really cool things because we've got some good guests. I am right now accompanied with Mr. Carl the Crusher. How you doing, Carl?
I'm doing awesome. Last night's episode was amazing. It covered a whole bunch of stuff. It's exciting. It was full of like teasers, and so I'm really hooked and ready to see where the rest of the season takes us. It's going to be really interesting.
Oh, no doubt. There's a lot of craziness going on all over the place. Everyone at home, if you don't know Carl the Crusher, just Google him. He's everywhere. He's got some really awesome stuff. You can just check out his YouTubes. He's done a ton of investigations, including on Blind Frog Ranch and all throughout the basin. We're normally also joined by James Keenan, who can't be with us because he is preparing right now to go on stage at a MUFON event in Phoenix, which is where I am right now. I'm actually in a hotel room about to head over to the MUFON event as soon as we're done with this live stream. So there's a lot of fun stuff. Duane Ollinger also is at that MUFON event speaking. So James Keenan, Duane Ollinger, MUFON Phoenix. They've got a really great event ahead of us today. So really exciting day today. In addition to what we're doing right here, right now, which is this recap. And I have to tell you guys, it is brought to you by all of our good friends at Blind Frog Ranch Outpost. That is up in Vernal, Utah. If you guys are not familiar, if you have not been there, you have to check it out. It is an amazing store, all sorts of gear. We got Blind Frog Ranch t-shirts, hats, mugs, pins, stickers, all kinds of crazy cool stuff. You got to go there and check it out. And as promised, every single week, we're going to give you some sort of new promo. This week's promo is the featured product of the Bigfoot Alien shirt. We just came out with this one. It is so awesome. Half Bigfoot, half Alien, Blind Frog Ranch. We're giving you 15% off. Just use the coupon code Bigfoot plus Alien on your checkout, and you'll get that discount. And then, of course, I do have to tell you guys that by popular demand, we're extending the hat discount as well. Those hats, everybody loves those hats. So those things are still on sale with a 15% off through the rest of this weekend. Now, with all of that being said, I want to get straight to our guests because we've got some really, really great guests here. I think I'm going to be the lowest IQ in the room today because we've got some good stuff. Let's bring on them one at a time here real quick. So as you all know, from the latest couple of shows, there's all sorts of investigations and security things happening. And with that, we are bringing on the man in charge of that, which is Jamie Dube. How you doing, Jamie?
Hey guys, how you guys been?
Been good. I can't wait to jump into some of the craziness that you've stepped into. We talked in previous episodes about how you have taken on this job reluctantly, basically because you're friends with Charlie Boy. And now you're just in the midst of all kinds of craziness, you know?
Yeah, it truly is. It truly is. At first I said no, then I came in, and now I'm at a point where I'm stuck. There's no I can't go anywhere right now until things get resolved.
You're just trapped. It is what it is. There's no getting out of it. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of the way Vernal is, Vernal, Utah is a very interesting place. Having spent a fair amount of time up there with Blind Frog Ranch Outpost and out on the ranch, it's not like anywhere else. It really isn't. There's all kinds of craziness. I mean, Carl, would you agree with that?
Yeah, it really sucks you in. And, there's this whole kind of myth about like hitchhikers that Bob Bigelow's talked about and things where and seriously, since I went up there to Phenomicon and went to Blind Frog Ranch and explored that whole area and went and saw the petroglyphs, my entire life has drastically changed, like tremendously. And even when I came home, I've had strange stuff go on even in my house, like the smoke alarms going on and off randomly. I'll be down taking the batteries out of one and another one goes off. The ceiling fans turning on and then going the other way, all kinds of weird stuff. I'm actually going to be doing like a live paranormal investigation in my house because I just sold it. Yes, I sold it yesterday, so I'm moving out of town to a new house. I'm going to investigate my house before we leave, and it's gotten really weird on me. So it hooks you, man. You got to
I'm sure your new owners are going to love that.
I'm not telling them anything. I'm just going to let them move in and figure it out because it's been really fascinating to me. But that place, when you go there, there's an energy to it that draws you in, and now I'm obsessed with trying to find the answers, just like Jamie. It's really fascinating.
Well, and we'll get into this more in a few minutes. I want to bring on our other guests so that we can all have just a nice conversation today. But yeah, I mean, Jamie, I know so far we're only 3 episodes in. We haven't gotten to see near as much of what you're doing, on air than what you're really doing. So it's really fascinating. I can't wait to see a little bit more. But with that, let's bring on our next guest. Guys, this is exciting. Mr. Jim Segala, you guys know him. He was a team member on Skinwalker Ranch season 1. We've worked with him, the BFR team. We're privileged to have worked with him since September of 2001. He's created a scientific measuring equipment. This is really interesting, guys. He calls it MUPAS. It's the Modular Unidentified Phenomenon Alert System. It's designed to measure the background radiation, gravity fields, and all kinds of really crazy stuff. It's searching for disturbances that might be present when you're experiencing or witnessing these strange phenomenons throughout the whole basin. And having that detail, having that data, it's really interesting. It's going to actually better prepare us for our observations in strange phenomenon. And he's going to discuss some of that today. So with that, I'm going to bring on Mr. Jim Segala.
Hi,
Jim
guys.
Segala, how you doing?
Nice being here.
Awesome. We're so glad to have you on board here. I've had the pleasure of working with you. Tell me, I know a lot of people have been missing you since season 1 of Skinwalker, but I know you've got a lot of projects. What have you been up to, man?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time still in the basin. I mean, I left the show in good hands. There's a scientist on the property at Skinwalker that's doing a fantastic job, of course. But I wanted to get out into the actual basin itself and get down into the nitty gritty and try to understand what's going on in the basin, how it happens, kind of catalog it. So we have some instruments out there and have some really good results.
Yeah, it's when I first started working with you, Jim, I was really impressed at this, scientific measurement, device that you put together, because one of the things that we battle, obviously, in discussion about anything going on in the basin, whether it's, Skinwalker Ranch, Blind Frog Ranch, or anywhere throughout, it's not just, confined to one piece of property.
Right.
There's
correct.
a lot of craziness going on up there. It's so hard to give real data, and that's what your goal is, right?
That's correct. What we're trying to do is that everybody from the outside looking in says, wow, these people must be crazy because they see all these things and they're looking at these things. But the thing is that these things are actually happening. So what we did is we said, we're going to prove that by, first of all, letting these people understand or communicate to us what's going on. And at the same time, read the environment, get some readings, and try to correlate that with what they're actually seeing. And then that makes it all real at this point. So if you have scientific instruments actually showing what they're seeing, then it's a whole new ballgame.
Yeah, it will be for a lot of people too. I think there's a large group of, the populace that wants to see hard proof. They want to see data.
Yeah.
If they've never actually experienced something, it's hard to put your head into, what other people have experienced. And if you haven't experienced it, you look at data, you look at hard proof, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Very good. Well, so speaking of hard proof and joining us is another guest who is absolutely phenomenal, very, very well respected, much like yourself. We've got Cheryl Lynn Carter. Cheryl Lynn Carter, guys, if you don't know about her, you need to check out. She is the co-author of Skinwalker, The Basin Files. It's a book that was written with Ryan Skinner. She has a wealth of information about the happenings in the Uintah Basin and the incredible history and discovery about the Lost Rhodes mines. It's really going to play in very well with what we're discussing today. And so I can't wait to bring her on. So here she comes. Cheryl Lynn, how are you doing today?
I'm great.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. We really, really appreciate everybody's involvement here. Cheryl, you've been researching this area for quite some time. You're familiar with what's going on both on the show as well as just in the community. Would you say that Vernal is a special place?
The whole basin is a special place.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it really is. It's pretty amazing. Guys, I want to remind you before we get too far into the topics of discussion. Again, everyone on this panel here, they're graciously giving us their time to just talk to everybody and inform everyone a little bit more about what's going on. Take some time to go to Cheryl's website. It's down here on the bottom, as well as Carl and we've got Jim Segala, Mupas, M-U-P-A-S. I'm saying that right, Jim?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
All right, go check that out if you want to know more about what he's doing there. And let's now jump into some topics, because we do have a lot of time, or a lot to cover today in our time. I really want to give you guys the opportunity to speak about what's going on. So I'm going to go right into a couple of clips here into the show. We're going to discuss a few of the clips. There's a lot going on, so we can't cover everything. But Jamie, I'm going to direct the first couple things to you, because we've got some really interesting things happening on that ranch. So let me share screen here really quick, and let's jump right into our first clip here and watch for just a second.
They're bolted to the rock, and all this other was with it. This camera was? That camera had a battery next to it too, and solar panels, all of them. Oh man, look at this. The other day we found this camera right up on the ridge, pointed down at our pond. I mean, it was super high tech. It seemed like it was remote controlled, and it could basically see everything we were doing.
All right, so we know about a little bit about the camera, Jamie, from last episode. This episode, you guys actually brought in an expert and talked a little bit about what that camera was there for. So let's look at that here for a second.
In reality, just looking like this, right, they would have never had to come back to your site. And we're about to find out if this is something that they were storing locally, or if I can log into this and find out if it's something they're accessing anywhere in the world. So, wow.
All right. So let's chat about this for just a second. You were brought in to investigate the young lady's either murder or suicide. You've been working on that, I know, behind the scenes. Obviously, I need to remind everybody watching this show that when you're watching Blind Frog Ranch, Mystery at Blind Frog Ranch on Discovery, they're sectioning off. There's a lot to cover, right? They're sectioning off things for a full season of information, right? So they can't divulge everything immediately. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes that people haven't seen yet of your investigations and what's going on. I mean, your hands are full, right, Jamie?
Oh yeah, absolutely full. You know, this camera, this spy camera that we found up on the hill, it was the way it was situated. It was watching base camp, and it was, we're talking high tech stuff. This, like you guys saw the solar panels that was connected to the unit, and the unit, when we opened it up, it was just everything's running 4K. This isn't the type of equipment that you'd go into like a Best Buy and purchase. This stuff was definitely bought, in the black market, and that's what I'm thinking, just because you can't find this stuff. And they're watching every move that we make, and this is real time. So
the big question here is, who is they and why, right? I mean,
that's just it. That's just it, it goes down the road. We work on it. We work on finding out, what the heck is going on, but. It's scary when you're being watched, and you can't do nothing about it.
Of course. And this wasn't even in the parameters of what you were going to have to investigate at the beginning. This is all new stuff. You just got to deal with it. It's popping up.
Stuff just keeps unfolding and ramping up all the time.
Now, I want to ask you a quick question about, so you had this expert come out. he plugged it in. Obviously, it's got a hotspot sending information elsewhere. There was a chance that you could find some information actually on it. And, you know, he tried to get that. We all saw, you know, on the episode that they weren't able to recover any data. To me, I'm a tech guy, so that's not surprising to me at all, because if I owned a camera like that and I was trying to do something covert, which, you know, I don't do that stuff, but if I were, I would immediately, when I saw people, because they had to see them walking up to the camera when they first discovered it, they had to see them. They probably deleted it then, right? Like right then, if there was any cached files on that device, it was deleted before you guys got it unplugged. In my opinion, what do you think?
Well, you know, the tech that we had working on that camera, you know, once he plugged that in, he shook his head and he was like, you know, I'm sorry, guys, it's gone. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and so I want to put up a comment here from one of our watchers. You know, is it military watching? Is government watching? I mean, you got to wonder. Like, that's really high tech, and either somebody has a lot of money and they have a very, very serious vested interest in spying on you guys, or there's some bigger play involved.
The camera was also painted like the area, like the desert.
Camouflaged.
Yeah.
So they didn't want you guys to know. They wanted it to be left up there as long as possible. Now, let's talk for a second about, I mean, obviously, you know, you're now involved. Charlie Boy is doing security. But you're now helping with that, obviously, as much as you can when you're not off investigating the other stuff. What, I mean, how are you guys prepared for someone to defend that place if people just come on?
So to speak, a little bit, yeah. You know what? You know, if we're being rushed, probably not. You know, if it's a big giant group of people, but you know, I think Charlie and I, we've got a pretty good handle on things over there on the ranch. You know, so
sure.
We see people all the time, off and on. You know, because there's other ranchers next to us, around us, that type of thing. So you really can't suspect everyone that, you know, is the culprit, because, you know, we're around other ranchers.
Well, and if you've been up to the ranch, and Carl, you've hiked all around the ranch as well. This is a giant ranch, and it's out in the middle of nowhere, so it's not as easy as just putting up fences everywhere. You know, it's just an open area, and so it's really hard to know what's going on every portion of that ranch, right?
Yeah, it's really difficult to like get a sense of the terrain and the dynamics of the area if you haven't been there personally or gone on the tour and walked around, because just where you see where the tree is and where that camera was positioned down to where the other spots are, it's a task to even get up there and around. I mean, people trying to sneak in and do that, they're really taking some chances. This is not just some nobody going up there and camouflaging this to the terrain, bolting it into the top of the mountain, positioning it in exactly the tactical spot in order to get a view. Somebody knew what they were doing and had a plan and a lot of money and resources in order to pull this off and to prevent it from being found and then to delete all the contents. And so, I mean, even just to monitor it as security, you guys have your hands full there, because even if you see somebody off in the distance, to try and close that gap and get there is a whole task. There's a million places to hide, and caves and pockets, and the terrain is extremely dynamic and huge. It's so vast up there that people just don't get a sense of it unless you've been there yourself. When I was there, it blew my mind. I live right by Zions National Park, and it's just as strange and unique in geology and formations as you can imagine going up there.
Yeah, the typography is crazy. And to your point, Carl, I'm going to bring up the next clip because people can, you know, navigate up there without you realizing it, and then you end up with a situation like this.
He said behind the pond, right? There, right there they are. You see them? Can you see them up there? No. Look. Right there. Go. Right over there. Oh, I got him. Let's go. Here, I got my razor here. Here we go. I guarantee we'll catch him right up that road right there.
So they believed that they were gonna run into him, but there's so many different ways on and off of that property. It's really difficult to navigate that whole thing, and that's where we really run into, you know, a massive security issue there. We get people that ask, you know, what about installing your own cameras, which I know Charlie has done. Have you suggested to them maybe setting up some new cameras? I mean, I know you can't divulge things in you know, later on in the season, but I mean, is that at least a thought?
Well, Charlie's been working on that all along, you know, so we don't talk about it, but you know, this camera's going up all the time. It's
Okay.
just, we can't, you know, if we don't talk about it, then they don't, you know, people won't know where these cameras are. So,
Oh, that's a really great
Yeah.
point. You know, we shouldn't be necessarily divulging that right now, because this is, you know, this is an actual property. What I think the watchers need to understand is that this is a real property. This is a real scenario. They're really doing, you know, all of these investigations are really hunting for things on that property. I mean, you have to understand, even Duane talks about, he's got satellite imagery. He has knowledge that there's things within that property. It's just a matter of exactly where and what. And that's why there's so much interest in the box and what's in that box, because that could be, you know, what, you know, Duane knows is up there. It's just a matter of, it's rough to get to, right? It's really rough to get to.
So, Dave,
So-
I just want to encourage some of the viewers that are watching that you have to realize that the government is extremely interested in what's going on in the basin.
Yeah.
They have things happening to their employees all over the country, and they don't know what's going on. So they look at the basin as a nice laboratory. So that they might be looking is extremely likely. They're just going to look from afar, though. I don't think they're going to park up on a ridge. They're going to fly over with a high altitude drone, but they're going to be looking. There's no question about that.
So that lends itself to something that was brought up in last week's episode that we did here was both, you know, James Keenan and Carl do investigations in that area. And I know, Jamie, you've run into this as well. Jamie, you found, you know, pure absolute evidence that NASA has had stuff up there. James Keenan has an incredible amount of information on the actual, you know, NASA set up there in that area. And you've had Black Hawk helicopters come up on you when you're up in that area. So, Jim, your point is exactly right. There is a massive interest in what's going on up there. The question is, why?
Well, right. It leads into everything, the Havana syndrome thing, that this all spins together. And just to let you know, I have briefed certain committees in the government on the ongoings of the basin, and not just the basin, other parts of the country. So they are extremely interested.
So with that being said, Jim, I want to jump into another clip. I kind of skipped it in the timeline of how they did the show, but I want to show it now because this is something that they're kind of just barely touching on, but everyone in the basin, everyone in that area, in that vernal area, is very familiar with this. So let's jump to a clip here real quick, and then we'll talk about it.
Oh wait, I do see something moving.
You see it?
It's moving.
Sometimes at night before the crew takes off, we pass around the night vision goggles.
Chad, how often is it like this?
This is every night, man. There's no light pollution. You can see so much stuff.
That thing is super bright.
Whoa!
Holy,
Look at this. Above that tree. Yeah, it's booking across.
oh, yeah,
Oh,
that
yeah,
one
look
right
at
there.
that.
Look at that, that right there.
That's
Oh,
bright.
you see it? Yeah.
You don't even need the night vision for that. Damn, dude. Look at that little sunbuck.
Look at that.
It looked like it just did a 90.
Uh-huh. I see stuff moving out here a lot, but I haven't seen one quite like that.
It's cruising.
Yeah, it is.
It is moving.
Looks like someone's keeping an eye on themselves.
All right, so let's jump on this, guys. This is really crazy stuff. Not so crazy to people in the basin. You guys are used to this sort of thing. But there really is a level of phenomena going on out there. UFO potentials, things in the sky. This is just a small piece of this. Jim, I want you to start off on this one a little bit. You've done a ton of research. You've done a ton of studies.
Sure.
Tell me what your thoughts are on this, because we've got a lot of people that are scratching their heads now going, we were looking for gold with Duane and Chad, and now there's this craziness. So clue us in a little bit about, you know, the history of Vernal and what we're seeing, what's going on.
So it's actually a good point, because there's a lot of people that are in the basin that have experiences, and they didn't realize there was something over their head while they had these experiences, but they end up having some neurological disorder, or maybe they have like extreme headaches, or they end up in the hospital. And what we actually decided to do was try to get these people to let us know when these things happen, look up in the sky, track some of these objects, and most of the time you find something strange going through the sky at the same time. These people are getting these incredible headaches or earaches or nosebleeds. I mean, it's a whole host of things that are happened to these poor people. But they were getting to the point where we can answer some of these questions. So what you guys showed on the show last night that I saw, I mean, I have a whole directory full of these things from people that sent them to me. And you know, at that time, they're scared of these things. They don't know what it is, but they're starting to get that feeling that maybe these are not sinister. They're really observational. They don't really have that fright anymore, but there are still scary things that are in the sky.
Well, so both Cheryl has great information on Skinwalker. You have great information. You guys both have a history there. A lot of people were asking, is it related? But here's the thing: they're only 20 miles apart. It's the same area. So related, or just it's an area thing, not just a ranch thing, right?
Yeah. So it kind of like does a flyover. So probably it starts off at the canyon. I'm sure it starts off at the canyon, and it comes down. The canyon above is north of Blind Frog and very much north of Skinwalker, and it kind of flows down from there down to Skinwalker. Skinwalker is kind of on the bottom of things. Cheryl, is that your opinion as well?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I find it really interesting that you know, the gold hunt, right, is now leading to all sorts of really just strange things. And I'm going to bring up another clip here real quick because this does bear mentioning. It's been very prominent among the Skinwalker footage, but it's now showing up on Blind Frog as well. So let's check this out.
Ooh-wee, look at that deal. Oh, God. There, a hammer.
Now we don't need to stare at that for too long here, but I definitely want to bring up the topic, because there's all sorts of schools of thoughts on this, right? I mean, we've seen that one, you know, actually looked to me like, you know, and the next one that they find in this episode, like it could be wild animal, because there's definitely wild animals out there, right? Jim, did you ever experience some of that out at the Skinwalker as well?
Yeah, we had an episode where a cow ended up passing away in it was a very calm day, one of those kind of days that it wasn't very that hot, but we saw a cow passed away, and we actually investigated that. We called the vet in, did a necropsy on it, and they found out that it was an acute pneumonia, which is something that is kind of out of the ordinary. And he said it was just brought on by a stressor, some kind of big stress event that happened that made his immune system drop down, and the pneumonia took over. And within probably a day, just killed this poor cow. And he didn't turn to me and said, "Look, E&M, radiation from something, is been known to do these things." And that was like, wait, you know, that was why would a vet say that? But it was a very strange situation. So it's very possible that something flew over and scared these cows, and their immune system just dropped off significantly, and they got sick. And then later on, maybe they got gnawed on by some animal. But
So you don't think it was an attack by an animal? It was an after the fact. I mean, and actually that makes sense for what we saw. Carl, I want to direct this towards you because I've heard you comment a couple times on you physically having issues while walking around out there, whether it's due to magnetism, something under the ground. There's a lot of, elements involved, right? Tell me your thoughts.
Definitely. It's been as simple. My first experience with that kind of cognitive confusion and things like that. It was really strange. I had all my equipment. I had night vision. I had different kinds of sensors and cameras in my backpack. And when I was there, pulled up at night doing the investigation, looking around, I just parked. It was on the south side of the basin over kind of by Skinwalker at the time. And at the time, I was going through my backpack and it was like I couldn't find any of my proper equipment. And the stuff that I could find, the batteries were all drained and going dead on me. I couldn't find my night vision. I couldn't find anything. This is what was really strange, is that I even had a headlamp on my head and never turned it on. It was like all my proper equipment fell into this weird cognitive blind spot and I couldn't think clearly. And the next day it was all right there where I had left it in the zippers in my backpack. And I even turned my backpack upside down and shook it out on the tailgate looking for my equipment. And it was like I couldn't find it. It was very strange and confusing. And at the same time, I did see like a dark shadow figure move along this fence line and then crouch down like the size of like a ball. And I went up to it, up to the fence line. It was pretty terrifying, but I walked up to it and there was just literally nothing there. And so I don't know if it was something interfacing with my own consciousness and perceptions and awareness and kind of glitching my perceptions and putting things in a blind spot. I can't explain why I got confused, but the rest of that night, it was literally like my thinking was like a ping pong ball rattling around. It was just like a million thoughts trying to go inside my mind at once. I was up half of the night. I was talking to friends on the phone being like, what is going on with me? And they were like, did you take anything from the area? Did you just take any like
eat a mushroom?
I was like, no, I wasn't doing anything. I was literally just there. I filmed a whole video about it and I went back the next day. I couldn't explain any of it. But there was just something really strange to that. And the cattle mutilations, we give them names and stuff like that. We call it, cattle mutilations, but it's really like a phenomenon that goes beyond that. The animal mutilations that are all kind of the same effects upon the animal that dies goes clear back to the early 1900s and all the way over into Europe, into Oregon and Colorado and all around. This is not just like a small thing. This is something that like Jim said, the government is very interested in. Linda Moulton Howe has studied for decades this topic, and it's well documented that this is something going on that's actually real.
Yeah, perfectly healthy animals just drop.
Yeah.
Well, and it stands to reason that, if you're going to feel some physical effects of the environment around you, whether it's the ground, whether it's metals, whether it's quartz, whether it's whatever it is, why wouldn't these animals be affected as well? And Jamie, I see you shaking your head. I'm guessing you felt or experienced a little bit of something weird on the ranch as well.
Yeah, it's all the time. And then the thing is it's during the day too. So it's not,
okay.
At night it's worse because you have other things that you're looking for in your body. It's dark, you can't see really well. So you have other senses that are like picking up for you, which makes it worse. But during the day, when it's clear out and you're feeling these feelings that are coming in, and you're not sure why, your mind's getting fogged up, and this happens a lot. So, and it's not good when you're trying to do a show too, and this is happening at the same time.
It's interfering with your work.
Yeah.
Well, I have to share a personal experience as well. So we've been out on the ranch several times. We set things up for the tour. The tour is great, by the way. You guys got to go out and do it. But I was actually filming Chad and Duane, little snippets of video on different parts of the ranch. And, I'm a very pragmatic type guy thinking I don't instantly jump to, what could cause something. I always go through, a logical thought process first. And this one had me majorly stumped. So I did experience the same thing with my camera equipment, where my batteries were perfect and then they dropped on certain parts of the ranch. I was filming Chad at one point right by the pond, actually, and I can see the screen. I can see that he's in frame, and I filmed him, and everything went fine. I could hear his audio. Everything was perfect. And then when I got back to actually pull that film, my footage was of nothing but the ground, and I had zero audio.
Yeah.
That makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. And it was only for that one clip. Everything else we filmed that day was fine. So there's so much weird little things. I mean, I see online that a lot of people question that stuff. Oh, yeah, right. You didn't have the footage. Oh, yeah, this just happens to break. Oh, these guys have bad luck. Seriously, there is a lot of weird things. We had the same thing happen with our van going out on a tour. The van runs perfect. Everything's great. You get to one part of the ranch and it overheats for no reason. The second you go to leave it, the van's perfectly fine. There's weird things going on. Cheryl, you're shaking your head too. Have you experienced some of this?
Well, I haven't been there, but I'm a paranormal investigator, and I've had this happen at other places, and my batteries have been drained, and I'll go to change the batteries, and when I do that, the battery's fully charged.
It doesn't make sense. It's not logical at all. You have to throw logic out the window. It's just crazy. We have to cover so many things. So forgive me, guys. My head's all over the place right now because Cheryl, hearing you speak, I'm so dying to get to some of your knowledge, because a big topic over the last 24 hours with this last episode is, this particular episode was very much probably 80% teasing on what we're going to find out possibly, without a big payoff. Well, that makes sense, guys. Please understand, this is television. They have shot an entire season worth of footage. They're editing it down for us to get in bite-sized pieces. And there's a lot of things to cover. It's no longer just a gold hunt, but I want to speak about the fact that this is truly a gold hunt, and there's a lot of potential as to why. So Cheryl, with that, I really want to pick your brain a little bit. I want to talk about first. Let me talk about your book. So, guys, take a look at this. Cheryl and Ryan Skinner co-authored this book called Skinwalker Ranch: The Basin Files. If you have not got this book, if you don't know anything about it, take the time, get it. There is some phenomenal information in there. You guys did a great job. I've had the pleasure of working a little bit with Ryan Skinner. Very, very much a wealth of information, as well as you, Cheryl. But I want you to focus on one thing right now. There's one chapter in there about the Rhodes lost mines. And it's important because, the original journey here with Duane and Chad was that they believe very, very much that there's gold up in there, or at least treasures of some kind. Can you walk us through some of that and share with us what you know?
First, I want to explain who Thomas Rhodes is. A lot of people think that he's just, another miner, another prospector. He actually joined the Latter-day Saints Church in Nauvoo, Illinois, with Joseph Smith. And when Joseph Smith got murdered, Brigham Young took over. Everybody knows that name. And he asked him if he would go out west and try to find a place where they could take their congregation and build a church. So he went out to the Utah Territory, which was actually Mexico owned at that time. Our government didn't own it. So they thought that would be the best place where they could go. They wouldn't be persecuted for any of their ideas. So he goes out there. First, he went to California and he met up with Mr. Sutter, and he worked at Sutter's mine. So that's where he learned his techniques. Then he came back over to the Basin area, and he happened to find a metal box with a bunch of Spanish maps in it. And he started prospecting and mining in all these different places. And there's a legend that he has his own mine that he found that was on the Ute Reservation, supposedly. And they called it what was it called? The place where the Great Spirit dwells. And only he was allowed to go into this mine. No one could come with him. No one could follow him. He could take out as much gold as he could carry at a time, which usually took him about 2 weeks to do this. When he died, his son Caleb took over. He was also going to the mine. Caleb was also working all these other mines too. And it's supposedly supposed to have Aztec gold in it.
Can I stop you there for just a second? Because
Sure.
That's a hot topic. A lot of people are going back and forth on there's no way there's Aztec gold there. Oh my God, it could be Aztec. And they got to be careful because that's actually, if it is Aztec gold, that's not just gold. You don't want to melt that down and go buy a couch with it, right? Or a house or whatever. That's actually, historical importance. So there's a lot of talk back and forth on that. Why do you believe that there actually is Aztec gold there?
Just a lot of research that I've checked. The Spaniards did go to Utah many years ago, before it was the Ute Reservation. They did take their gold. They did hide it in certain places. Didn't always come back for it.
Right.
Which we think this is one of the mines where they hid a lot of stuff.
And you've done some really great research. You've actually found maps. Do you want me to share some of that here?
Yeah. These are the maps that he found, the Spanish maps that he found in that box. So these are the mines that he was working.
So talk us through this a little bit. We're looking at this first map. What are we looking at?
This is actually, he drew this on a piece of 4x5 buckskin on his deathbed.
Oh, wow. And that's drawn actually by Caleb Rhodes?
Yes.
And then this one here?
That one, these are all the Spanish mines. That's below Low Pass, and it's on tribal land there.
And then we've got one here.
That's near Log Hollow in Farm Creek Canyon.
And so these are hand-drawn maps by these gentlemen so that they can remember how to get back to what they've hidden, right?
Right. That's near Chain Lake area in the Uinta River drainage area.
Okay. And then this one you said has particular importance. Tell us about this one.
Oh, that one is so beautiful. When Caleb died, there was a fire in the cabin 2 years later. And when they put the fire out, they found something very interesting. It was like a log cabin, and one of the pieces of the wall actually fell out and revealed something, and it revealed this map. He had secretly carved this into the back wall, and he notched out a section, replaced it so that it was covered up. Now, is this the Lost Rhodes mine? Why did he share the other maps with people, but he hid this one in his cabin?
That's insane. So he actually had carved out a piece of his own cabin, carved the map into the wall, and then covered that back up.
Yes.
And the only reason you guys discovered it is because of a fire.
Yes. So he took the secret to his death? I don't know.
I don't know, guys. Do you think maybe that might have been important enough for someone to hide? I mean, come on.
But yeah, he shared the other maps.
There's so much of this history that goes all the way back. I mean, people question whether the Aztec could have been there, but honestly, even just the petroglyphs and the pictographs right nearby, some of those date clear back from 3,000 to 8,000 years ago. Yeah. They're so old, and the entire region was used by levels and levels of culture to cache things, to hide treasure, to bury the dead, to perform their ritual ceremonies and all kinds of stuff. And even when you get into these areas, it gets really mysterious because there's a lot of, early 1800s and settlement forts where they were building early pioneer fortresses around. And the Spanish also came through there, and they put the Native Americans into slave labor, working in these mines all up through that region, which is why a lot of it falls under the historical myths about the curses over the land. And they didn't want to show anybody where this was because it was a part of their bad history, where they were used as slaves and had to revolt and overthrow their Spanish slave masters and drive them out of the area. So all of these pocket caves and areas around there are full of this stuff and this historical evidence of migration after migration and occupation of different cultures over thousands of years. And they all circle around that Uintah Basin and up around Blind Frog Ranch. There's even Masonic carvings and different occult carvings and symbols around on the ranch, or not maybe on the ranch, but around in the area that date back. And the mystery is just levels and levels of it. So if people aren't aware that there could have been Aztec up there burying their gold and hiding it, they considered the local natives up there their cousins at the time, 500 years ago. So it was very common for them to send people up there to hide stuff and to check on their caches and then go back down to South America. That was going on a lot.
Yeah, so Dave, I want to point out something, that a part of the study that we're doing in the basin involves some people that are very religious in the Indian culture, and they go up into the basin area. They go up into the areas, the mine areas, to perform certain rituals. What happens though, when they do that, when they return, they always feel like something's following them, and the instruments that they have in their house tend to go crazy for about a week, and then it levels off. And if they do something bad, like take any kind of rock back with them, or they take something away, they end up having very, very bad experiences until they actually take that back again. And we've had that documented. So we're kind of like, we have a little offshoot investigation going on here just to understand, is that a real thing, or this is something that they feel? But these people, they go up and hiking in the basin area, up in the canyons, and you're miserable for a whole week after that. And if they do something wrong, if they don't treat it with respect.
So I want you to elaborate a little bit more on this, Mr. Scala, because man, your device, it measures so many things. It measures gamma. It measures, I'll let you describe exactly what it does.
Gravity.
Yeah,
yep.
Those things are measurable, happenings. Those are measurable things. You can actually record the data. And what you're telling me is that the religious beliefs and or folklore, whatever you want to call it, the thoughts of what's going on out there does have a measurable result. And you're doing that in multiple places all around the basin, right?
That's right. And so, and it's kind of like, if we're trying to understand if we can prompt it to happen, it looks like you really can't do that. Mm-hmm. But we do know that we have a large correlation with when people venture out into these areas that are considered sacred and used by, past dynasties to store things or have, ceremonies or things like that. When they return from that, it just seems like all hell breaks loose, and they just have horrible experiences for a while, and then it kind of tapers off.
So almost like a curse, right? I mean,
yeah. And the thing is that
talk about that.
And interesting enough, I just want to make sure people understand that they don't know this is happening. We monitor their data. They put their experiences in. We don't tell them anything about what's going on with the instruments. We just say later on down the road, by the way, when you came back, this thing went crazy for you. I mean, months later.
Okay, so to understand this, so let's say they're keeping track of what they're doing. They've gone out. They've maybe taken something that they shouldn't have, right? And I know that Duane has talked to me about this quite a bit. He's very conscious of the land, right? If he takes something, he puts something back in its place.
Yes, you
right?
have to do. Yep.
He's very, very conscious of that. But when this sort of thing happens, somebody that you're maybe doing this test with may write down or keep a log of, hey, this happened to me on this day. I felt weird on that day, yada, yada. But they can't see the data you can see. You go back and correlate it and go, oh my gosh, this was off the chart at the same time you were experiencing that.
Right. So if they go up to there and they use their singing bowl and they actually do the right thing and they treat it with respect, they come back and everything is very benign, very nice. But if they go up there and they do something that is not what could be expected, then we have a definite uptick in all these things.
So let's correlate that all back to the Spaniards and the gold here real quick, because Cheryl, you have researched this quite a bit. You know that there's maps. You know that this area definitely had a history of potential Aztec gold. I mean, I'm even seeing chats of, hey, the Spanish weren't nice. They set some things up for people. There's traps, right? There's do you have any commentary on, the negative possibilities of pulling any of that gold or those treasures?
Well, I'm sure that there are traps, because they're going to come back for their gold, and they don't want anybody to get it.
Right.
Absolutely believe there could be some kind of trap. It could be dangerous. They have to be very careful.
Well, and I think that's very important to note, because a lot of people question, and even I find myself logically questioning, why are they going about things the way they're doing it? Why are they trying to drag the box out in a one entire piece? Why are they not just blasting? Why are they not doing this? Why are they not doing that? We all have our own opinions, but the truth is they're trying to balance all sorts of things. They're trying to balance rules and regulations from the Bureau of Land Management. They're trying to balance being true to the land and not, doing anything crazy. They're trying to balance safety, not having things, come down on them, and the potential of traps and this negative, potential of disturbing something that's not meant to be disturbed, right?
And if you had some gold and you wanted to put it someplace, why not put it someplace where it already has some protection built into it?
Yeah, that's interesting. That's really interesting. And last week we talked a little bit about the potential of, with that box down there, has it been flooded the whole 500 years, or has it just recently happened because they were digging down in there? You know what I mean? We don't know the answers to this stuff, guys. And there's a lot left to try and discover here. But I really appreciate that you guys are coming on and giving us a scientific perspective, because I know that what's going on up there is absolutely real and absolutely happening. I know that TV puts their own little, editing on it. They have to reenact certain scenes. Obviously, they don't have cameras in, every place, and they don't always have the ability to film things. I mean, I know that underwater, a lot of times you can't see anything. It's all black, too murky, whatever. So they may reenact some of these things, which is maybe why some of the questions are coming up. But I do know that you guys know this, separate from Duane's story, separate from Mystery at Blind Frog Ranch TV show, separate from all of that. This stuff is real. This stuff is crazy, and it warrants investigating, right?
Yeah, that's part of the challenge that people don't understand about filmmaking and this whole process. And it's frustrating for everybody here on this panel and the people working up at the ranch, is that we all know that there's like 95% of what goes on up there gets left on the cutting room floor in the editing. And it's like a big cross stitching or a tapestry, where what everyone in the public sees that's released on television is a very cleaned up and stitched together, presentable version of it to try and follow a storyline to carry the viewer from the beginning to the end of the season. But if you look at the backside of that tapestry, there is so much going on dynamically in so many different directions that most of it never even gets shown. All of Jim's scientific equipment and research and the data there is so much for people to even try to fathom. I mean, which angle do you take on it? Do you focus on the gold? Do you focus on the paranormal activity? Do you focus on the UFOs, the military and governmental involvement, the history, the geology? Where do you even begin? And so like this whole episode was just touching on all of those little points, trying to make everybody aware of the bigger picture.
Carl, that's such a great point, because we don't see the whole picture. We're only seeing one episode at a time, and that's still a very narrow view, right? And we haven't seen the whole whole season yet, so we don't even know what else is next. Jamie, I see you shaking your head, and I know exactly why. How the heck do you stay focused? Every question you try to answer leads to 50 more questions, and that's something Wayne said from the beginning.
Kyle just said it all perfectly.
And I'm sure they've had a lot of personal experiences that they're not sharing.
And that happens.
We're knowing 10% of what's actually happening there.
Yeah, all this is happening all the time.
Yeah.
And then when you have the cognitive thing happening too.
Yeah,
you know.
Well, so
Because that's on top of everything.
well, and that's got to be frustrating, Jamie, because here you're up there busting your can, trying to get answers, trying to do things. You've got your own frustrations going on with just trying to get real answers. But then you get thrown these curveballs of, well, now I got to deal with intruders. Now I got to deal with spy cams. Now I got to deal with all of this. And on top of all that, the land seems to fight back, does it not?
Yeah. You're dealing with all that, and then you have to deal with your own mind at the same time, because there's something there.
Yeah.
Always there, you know. And I feel like the minute I go into the basin, but mostly on the ranch, is that I feel like I'm being watched all the time.
Everyone who's been up there says that, Jamie. Everyone who's been up there says that they feel like they're being watched at all times. It's really interesting because in a city, you understand that. Out in the middle of nowhere, that's crazy, right? Well, guys, let's circle back to a couple of things. Obviously, the hot spots right now in terms of what just happened in last night's episode is the box. What's going on with the box? Are they going to get the box out? I mean, there's all sorts of chatter about it. We don't know what's in it. We don't know if it's gold. We don't know if it's something maybe more important, maybe something more historical, or maybe nothing. What we do know is that Duane went into this project with all sorts of information on that property, knowing that there are valuable things in that ground, and it's been proven. They've already done alchemy. They've already found iridium. They've already found, gold. These are all very real things, guys. Now the question is, what's the biggest? What's the next? I believe that we got a little bit of a tip on that from Discovery Channel. Let me share this real quick. The description of next week's episode says, Chad makes a huge mistake derailing the operation to drag the box out of the cavern. I think we all saw that coming. Dragging the box is a tough prospect, right? But then they pull out some of the box's contents and they're shocked with what they discover. So that's what we have to look forward to here next week. And I know that the interesting thing that we all need to keep in mind is we know what kind of interesting and crazy things that are out there. Plus, we know the history and we know the integrity of everyone on the show. So, how it's unfolding on the television show is one thing. What we are here talking about is the reality of there's a lot of interesting things there, and I can't wait to see how it unfolds. What do you think, Cheryl? You're predicting they're going to find some kind of Aztec, whether it's in that box or not, right?
Yes, and I told you when I remote viewed there, I kept hearing somebody say blue. And blue is very important. No, sure.
And blue is an interesting thing to say about this property because they found the blue dirt. We know that that's rich with iridium. We know that iridium is not a compound from the world. It's not an earthly compound. That's from a meteor of some kind. They've already mentioned that there's a possibility of some things that are underground. I mean, Jim, what are your thoughts on what all this craziness means? What do you think we're going to find?
I think it's great that they're looking for something, that they're actively doing something on the ranch. I think Skinwalker suffered from this, that they weren't doing anything. They were just like looking for things. You can't measure the phenomena. You have to kind of do something else, pretend you're not listening, and that's when the weird stuff happens. So that they're looking for gold, that they're digging, they're doing all these things is fantastic, because then they're not paying attention to the phenomena, and the phenomena is doing what it wants. But now you can do some scientific experiments on it without really having to. Bigelow found this. Bigelow, I mean, he was so frustrated. Every time he tried to measure the damn thing, it went away.
Right.
Yeah, it's like a trick. It's like a trickster, right, Jim?
Yeah.
Right. It's really like a trickster type of phenomenon where it really plays with your blind spots. And when you're looking over here, it's doing something over here. You're headed to check the game camera and there's a mutilated deer. Like you can't even hardly get where you're going without bumping into something that surprises you and all of a sudden robs you of your interest in where you were headed,
So
it's great. I have a question for Jamie.
Yeah.
But when you're going onto the ranch every day, do you feel like something already knows you're coming?
Good question. Honestly, I feel like me going on the ranch every day is something that I was supposed to do.
Right.
So I think that I'm a part of this big project because I'm supposed to be. And I think we're all part of the pieces to the puzzle.
Because something wants you all there.
That's
Yeah.
how I really feel. So to me, it's not a coincidence.
No.
So I know that what's happening, me just being there, I'm supposed to be. And I can't really say much more than that.
Yeah.
Well, and Jamie, if I may bring it back to what you originally brought on the show for, was to investigate that either suicide or murder of that girl. There's been a little bit of chatter about that as well, because the question now is not just who is she and how did she die, but why, right?
Mhm.
Why would somebody go to a remote location to either commit suicide, or why would they be murdered, and why would they be taken away without any trace?
Mhm.
It smells to everybody like there's larger story to this. And Duane, in his efforts to just find what's on that property, is just touching on what is a bigger story. I mean,
Tip of
is
the
that
iceberg.
something you're getting as well?
Yes, it's just the tip of the iceberg. That's all it is.
Which is why in the TV show they can't really tell us enough, right? I mean, this
Right.
last episode was frustrating for a lot of people only because there was a lot of beginning of a storyline of multiple things that are happening, but no real payoff on what's going on because we don't know yet.
Right. That's right. And it's coming. It's coming.
Right. Interesting. Well, guys, we're it for time right now. I told you we were going to run out of time. Well, there's so much to cover. We haven't even tapped into the brilliance of Mr. Jim Segala, PhD. You're an amazing wealth of knowledge. If you guys are interested in anything that he's done and all of the equipment that he's been setting up, please go check out his website. You're talking about some very, very interesting stuff. It's at moopus.org. Check that out. Cheryl, I want to thank you so much for being on the show as well. Guys, buy her book. Ryan Skinner and Cheryl Lynn Carter co-authored an amazing book about the Basin and Skinwalker Ranch. You've got to go check it out. Thank you so much, Cheryl, for being on. And then, of course, Jamie, man, you're taking some hits. You're doing some really, really difficult stuff out on that ranch. We haven't seen a lot of screen time for you to shine in terms of how much work you're doing up there, but I appreciate how much work you're doing up there. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And Carl, as always, you're my man. Thank you for being with us. Everybody, please go to Blind Frog Ranch Outpost.com. You've got to check out everything there. We've got the hats continuing on sale. We've got our special right now, which is the Bigfoot alien shirt, 15% off. We got mugs. We've got shot glasses. We've got just an amazing amount of really cool stuff. As always, this is David Schooley from Blind Frog Ranch Outpost. I appreciate every one of you. Thank you so much for joining.